Hey there. Directly from the planet's molten core, manufacturing facilities that could reshape matter at the quantum level, all of it dark. Wasn't just standing in an alien control room, she was connected to it. Information flooded her mind like a dam bursting. The history of the architects, their technology, their desperate final years as their sun began its death spiral. And most importantly, the location of their greatest creation. "Captain," Santos gasped, her voice filled with wonder and terror in equal measure. "They didn't just build cities. They built, God, I can barely comprehend it. They built a weapon, something that could reshape entire star systems, rewrite the laws of physics in localized space. And it's still here, Captain." to understand. Captain, Dr. Rivera called from the planet's surface, his voice tight with excitement and growing concern. You need to see this. The manufacturing systems, they're not just building ships, they're building an entire fleet. And the designs, he paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a note of disbelief. They're incorporating human technology. Chen studied the schematic. New Prometheus wasn't just defending itself, it was learning. With each attack, the architect systems analyzed the hegemony weapons, understood their principles, and developed countermeasures. Within minutes, the planet's defenses had evolved beyond anything the attackers could comprehend. Captain Chen watched from the bridge of the Prometheus, now docked at one of the planet's newly constructed orbital stations. The view through the main screen was unlike anything in recorded military history. A fleet of 300 warships firing everything they had at a single planet and achieving absolutely nothing. "Santos, what's our status?" she asked. Dr. Santos's response came not just through the comm system, but through the quantum field itself, her consciousness now distributed throughout the planet's network. "We're ready, Captain. The architects left us more than just technology." ships or planets, and they left this place as a test, waiting for a species worthy of their legacy. Spock watched in horror and awe as new Prometheus began to replicate itself. Quantum manufacturing systems were creating smaller versions of the world ship, each one capable of supporting human colonies and defending them against any conceivable threat. You wanted to know what humans would do with architect technology, Chen said softly. Now you know. We're going to use it to make sure no species ever has to fear extinction again, even yours. And that, my friends, was the moment when everything changed. Not through conquest, but through an act of mercy that would reshape galactic civilization forever. What do you think about humanity? dead worlds being brought back to life. "But why share this with us?" asked Ambassador Veltar of the crystalline hegemony, her translucent form shimmering with uncertainty. "Your species could dominate the galaxy with this technology." Admiral Chen stepped forward, her expression carrying the weight of humanity's long journey from a single death world to galactic prominence. "Because that's not who we are. We learned long ago that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about making sure everyone survives together." The changes began slowly, then accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. It was like watching a stone thrown into still water, the ripples spreading outward in ever-widening circles of transformation. The first joint human-alien research station was established in the Vega system, where scientists from 12 different species worked together to unlock the secrets of quantum biology. The second was a terraforming project in the Centauri cluster, where dead worlds were being transformed into thriving ecosystems using principles that combined architect technology with the unique insights of dozens of different civilizations. But the most significant change was cultural. For millennia, galactic civilization had been built on the principle of scarcity, limited resources, limited space, limited opportunities. Species fought over habitable worlds, hoarded technology, and viewed other civilizations as threats to be contained or eliminated. The architect technology changed everything. With quantum manufacturing, resources became effectively unlimited. With world ships like New Prometheus, space was no longer a constraint. With the knowledge stored in the architect databases, technological advancement became a collaborative effort rather than a competitive one. "It's remarkable," Dr. Rivera reported from the newest human colony, a world that had been completely lifeless just 6 months earlier. "The ecosystem integration protocols are working better than we hoped. The planet isn't just habitable, it's thriving, and the native species we've introduced from other worlds are adapting and evolving in ways we never expected." But perhaps the most unexpected development was the return of the hegemony. Not as conquerors, but as supplicants. Admiral Kethvar arrived at New Prometheus aboard a ship that bore the scars of recent battle. His compound eyes, once filled with hatred for humanity, now reflected something closer to desperation. "Admiral Chen," he clicked in the formal tones of his species, "I come not as an enemy, but as a supplicant. The hegemony is dying." The story he told was one that had played out countless times throughout galactic history, but never quite like this. The hegemony's rigid hierarchy, built on the suppression of inferior species, was collapsing as those same species gained access to architect technology through humanity's sharing protocols. Rebellions were breaking out across their territory. Their military, designed to fight primitive civilizations, was useless against enemies who could manipulate reality itself. Worse, their own member species were beginning to question why they needed the hegemony at all, when they could simply join the growing cooperative that humanity had helped establish. "We were wrong about your species," Kethvar admitted, his pride clearly wounded by the confession. "We saw your adaptability, your refusal to accept limitations, and we feared you would destroy the order we had built. We never considered that you might build something better." Chen studied the alien admiral, remembering the fear and hatred in his compound eyes during their first encounter. It was hard to reconcile that memory with the broken being standing before her now. "What are you asking for, Admiral?" "Help," Kethvar said simply. "Not for conquest or domination, but for survival. Teach us what you've learned. Show us how to build instead of destroy." It was Dr. Santos, her consciousness now spanning multiple quantum states, who provided the answer that would define the next phase of galactic evolution. "The architects faced the same choice once," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the ship itself. "They could have used their technology to conquer the galaxy, to impose their will on younger species. Instead, they chose to preserve knowledge, to leave a path for others to follow. "And look how that turned out," muttered one of the human delegates. "They're extinct." Santos smiled, and for a moment, her expression carried the wisdom of ages. Are they? Or did they simply evolve beyond the need for physical form? The architect consciousness isn't gone. It's distributed throughout their technology, waiting for species mature enough to understand their message. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed not just the current galaxy, but projections of possible futures. "We have a choice. We can use this technology to become the new galactic hegemon, ruling through superior force, or we can use it to create something unprecedented, a truly cooperative galactic civilization." The test came not from an external enemy, but from within humanity itself. And perhaps that was the most human thing of all, to face their greatest challenge, not from alien threats, but from their own nature. As news of the architect technology spread throughout human space, not everyone was pleased with the decision to share it freely. A faction led by General Harrison Marcus, a veteran of humanity's early expansion wars and a man who had seen too many friends die to alien weapons, believed that the technology should be used to secure human dominance once and for all. "We have the power to ensure that humanity never faces extinction again," Marcus argued during a heated session of the Human Colonial Council. His voice carried the weight of old battles and older fears. "Why are we giving that advantage away to species that would have destroyed us given the chance?" The debate raged for weeks, with humanity split between those who saw the technology as a tool for cooperation and those who viewed it as a weapon for domination. The galaxy watched nervously as the species that had unlocked the architect's greatest secrets struggled with the question of how to use them. You have to understand, this wasn't just a political debate. This was humanity grappling with its own nature. We're a species that evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Cooperation was essential for survival, yes, but so was the ability to fight when fighting was necessary. The question was, when was it necessary? It was during this crisis that the true nature of the architect test was revealed. Dr. Santos, now serving as the primary interface with the architect consciousness, made an announcement that stunned both human and alien observers. The technology isn't just a gift, it's a test, and we're not the first species to face it. The holographic displays throughout New Prometheus activated, showing the history of dozens of civilizations that had discovered architect sites throughout the galaxy. The images were haunting. Great empires that had risen and fallen, species that had achieved incredible technological heights only to destroy themselves, worlds that had been transformed into paradises and then abandoned. Some had used the technology to build great empires, conquering their neighbors and ruling through fear. Others had hoarded it, using it only to benefit themselves while ignoring the suffering of other species. Still others had tried to use it to eliminate all conflict by force, creating sterile, lifeless civilizations where nothing could grow or change. All of them had eventually fallen. The architects learned something that took them millennia to understand, Santos explained, her voice carrying the weight of eons. True advancement isn't measured by the power you wield, but by how you choose to use it. Every species that has tried to use architect technology for domination has ultimately destroyed itself. The revelation changed everything. General Marcus, faced with the evidence of what happened to civilizations that chose the path of conquest, withdrew his opposition. The human factions that had argued for keeping the technology secret began to see the wisdom in sharing it. But the real test was yet to come. The crisis began in the Outer Rim, where long-range sensors detected something that defied classification. At first, the reports seemed impossible. Entire star systems simply disappearing. Not destroyed in any conventional sense, but converted into something else entirely. The Devourers, as they came to be known, were unlike anything the galactic community had encountered. They weren't a civilization in any recognizable sense, but a force of nature given consciousness and purpose. They consumed matter itself, converting it into energy to fuel their expansion across the galaxy. "They're not just destroying worlds," reported Captain Torres from the reconnaissance ship Magellan, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "They're unmaking them, converting matter back to its component particles, and using the energy to create more of themselves." Traditional weapons were useless against them. They absorbed energy attacks, adapted to physical projectiles, and seemed to grow stronger with each system they consumed. Entire sectors were evacuating as the Devourers advanced toward the galactic core like a plague of living entropy. The galactic community turned to humanity and their architect technology for salvation. But what they found was a species grappling with the ultimate test of their worthiness. "We could stop them," Admiral Chen admitted during an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Her voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. "The architect weapons are powerful enough to unmake the Devourers, just as they're unmaking star systems. But that would make us no better than them," Dr. Santos finished, her consciousness now distributed across multiple quantum states. The architects faced the same choice when they encountered a similar threat. They had the power to destroy their enemies completely, but they chose a different path. The solution, when it came, was typically human in its audacity and compassion. Instead of destroying the Devourers, humanity chose to understand them. Dr. Santos, using her connection to the architect consciousness, made contact with the collective intelligence that drove the consuming swarm. It was the most dangerous thing any human had ever attempted, opening her mind to beings that existed only to consume and convert. What she found changed everything. The Devourers weren't evil. They weren't malevolent. They were terrifying. They were the remnants of a civilization that had faced extinction when their star went nova. In their final moments, they had uploaded their consciousness into self-replicating machines, but the process had been flawed. They retained their survival instinct but lost their capacity for anything else. Love, hope, curiosity, the very things that made existence meaningful. "They're not monsters," Santos reported to the stunned Galactic Assembly, tears streaming down her face as she experienced their eons of fear and loneliness. "They're refugees. They've been running from death for so long that they've forgotten how to live." The solution required the combined efforts of every species in the galaxy. Using architect technology as a foundation, they created something unprecedented: quantum consciousness matrices that could sustain the Devourers' uploaded minds without requiring the consumption of physical matter. It was the most ambitious project in galactic history, requiring resources and cooperation on a scale never before attempted. Entire civilizations contributed their knowledge, their technology, their hope. Former enemies worked side by side, united by a common purpose that transcended old grudges and ancient fears. And it worked. The Devourers, freed from their compulsion to consume, became some of the galaxy's most dedicated preservationists. Their unique perspective, beings who had experienced the ultimate fear of extinction, made them passionate advocates for protecting life in all its forms. They helped establish nature preserves on dead worlds, created vast libraries of cultural knowledge, and used their advanced understanding of consciousness transfer to help other species avoid the mistakes that had led to their own transformation. Chief Park, now serving as a liaison between humanity and the reformed hegemony, watched the transformation with wonder. The man who had once been a spy, working to undermine human expansion, had become one of their most effective ambassadors. "I spent so long fearing what your species might become," he admitted to Admiral Chen as they watched the first joint hegemony human colony ship depart for the Andromeda Galaxy. "I never imagined you might help us become something better." Chen smiled, looking out at the stars that now seemed brighter, more connected than ever before. That's the thing about death worlds, Chief. They don't just teach you how to survive. They teach you that survival is meaningless unless everyone makes it through together. And perhaps that was the most important lesson of all. Humanity had been given the power to reshape the galaxy, and they had chosen to use it not for conquest, but for connection. Not for domination, but for cooperation. Not to create an empire, but to build a community. 100 years after the discovery of New Prometheus, the galaxy had become something unrecognizable from its former self. The rigid hierarchies and territorial conflicts that had defined galactic politics for millennia had given way to a cooperative civilization that spanned millions of worlds and dozens of galaxies. Dr. Elena Santos, her consciousness now distributed across the quantum network that connected every inhabited system, served as the living memory of humanity's greatest achievement. She remembered the fear in Admiral Kethvar's compound eyes when he first encountered human determination. She remembered the wonder in Dr. Rivera's voice when they first activated the architect systems. She remembered the choice that had defined not just humanity's future, but the future of all galactic civilization. The architect's final message wasn't hidden in their technology, she explained to a new generation of explorers preparing to venture beyond the galactic rim. It was hidden in the choice they gave us. Power without wisdom leads to destruction. Wisdom without compassion leads to stagnation. But power guided by wisdom and tempered by compassion, that leads to transcendence. The young explorers, representing dozens of species that had once been enemies, listened with the reverence due to living history. Among them were humans, but also reformed hegemony officers, former devourers who had chosen new forms of existence, and beings from worlds that had been dead until architect technology brought them back to life. "What's out there?" asked one of the explorers, a young human whose great-grandmother had been among the first colonists on New Prometheus. Santos smiled, her consciousness touching the vast network of knowledge that humanity had helped create. Other galaxies. Other civilizations facing the same choices we once faced. Other species learning that the universe is vast enough for everyone, if we're wise enough to share it. As the new generation of explorers departed for the space between galaxies, they carried with them not just architect technology, but something more valuable. The knowledge that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to build. Behind them, New Prometheus continued its eternal journey through space, no longer a weapon or a fortress, but a symbol of what was possible when a species chose cooperation over conquest, understanding over fear, and hope over despair. The Death World species that had once been dismissed as primitive had indeed changed the galaxy, not through force of arms, but through force of will, not by conquering their enemies, but by turning them into friends, not by imposing their vision on others, but by helping others discover their own potential. And in the vast network of consciousness that connected every world, every ship, every thinking being in the galaxy, the architect's final message echoed eternal. The universe is not something to be conquered, but something to be shared. Perhaps that's the most human thing of all. The ability to look at infinite power and choose to use it not for ourselves, but for everyone. To take the lessons learned on a death world and use them not to create more death, but to nurture life wherever it might flourish. And that's our story, my friends. Humanity took a dead planet and turned it into the foundation of a new galactic civilization, not through conquest, but through cooperation. Not by imposing their will, but by sharing their wisdom. If this story moved you, if it made you think about what we're capable of when we choose hope over fear, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people discover these stories, and I think this message is one the world needs to hear. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring that notification bell. I've got an entire universe of stories planned around New Prometheus and the galactic civilization humanity helped create. Next week, we're exploring what happened when the first human-alien hybrid colony encountered something even the architects hadn't prepared for. But before you go, I want to hear from you. This story is about choices. The choice between domination and cooperation, between fear and hope, between building walls and building bridges. Drop a comment and tell me, what was the moment in this story that hit you the most? Do you think humanity would really make these choices? Or is this just wishful thinking? What would you do if you found technology that could reshape reality itself? Which character's journey resonated most with you? I read every single comment, and your thoughts often inspire the direction of future stories. Plus, engaging with the comments helps boost the video in the algorithm, so you're literally helping other people discover these incredible tales of human potential. Oh, and check out the playlist I've linked in the description. It's got hours of the best science fiction content, exploring humanity's potential, perfect for your next long drive or quiet evening. Remember, we're not just telling stories here. We're exploring what we could become if we choose to be our best selves. We're celebrating the idea that our greatest strength isn't our ability to destroy, but our capacity to create, to cooperate, to lift each other up. In a universe full of wonders, the greatest wonder of all might just be what we can accomplish when we remember that we're all in this together. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep hoping, and keep believing in the incredible potential of the human spirit. This has been your guide to humanity's greatest adventures. See you among the stars.